Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaban bikum. Welcome to another edition of Vantage Point on ITV. I'm your host, Mohammed Choonara. Thank you for joining us once again this evening. The 27th of April commemorates a day in 1994 when the first democratic election was held in South Africa. Today, South Africa celebrates Freedom Day to mark the liberation of our country and its people from a long period of colonialism and white minority domination. Apartheid officially began in South Africa in 1948, but colonialism and oppression of the African majority had plagued South Africa since 1652. After decades of resistance, a stalemate between the liberation movements and the apartheid government was reached in 1988. The ANC, the SACP and the PAC and other organizations were later unbanned on the 2nd of February 1990, and a non-racial constitution was eventually agreed upon and adopted in 1993. On the 27th of April 1994, the nation finally cast its vote in the first democratic election in the country. The ANC was then voted into power and Nelson Mandela was inaugurated as the President of South Africa on the 10th of May. It is important to note, however, that freedom should mean emancipation from poverty, unemployment, racism, sexism, and other forms of discrimination. We are 23 years into our new democracy, and many of these issues are still rife in our country. We are still a long way away from solving many of the legacies of apartheid and now face new challenges like the growing inequality among South Africans and political and economic instability in the region caused by a new elite who are interested in pursuing their own interests. Freedom Day therefore serves as a reminder to us that the guarantee of our freedom requires us to remain permanently vigilant against corruption and the erosion of the values of the freedom struggle, and to build an active citizenry that will work towards wiping out the legacy of racism, inequality, and the promotion of the rights embodied in our Constitution. Let's take a look at a clip titled Nelson Mandela and the End of Apartheid.
I believe that he will be thought of as one of the greatest men of his times. Starting off as a young Tembu, very proud of his African traditions. He had dedicated his life to a free and democratic South Africa for all its people, and that he hoped to see it achieved and lived happily in it, but added that if needs be, he was prepared to die.
Mandela, Sisulu and Tambo participated in the founding of the ANC Youth League.
And their aim right from the start was to radicalize the thinking in the senior organization. Civil disobedience, strikes, passive resistance.
He became volunteer-in-chief in the Defiance campaign. Only those who were prepared to make that sort of sacrifice were elevated to leadership positions in the African National Congress.
Knowledge removes fear, never fear, no more.
Dr. Verwoerd said there is no place in white South Africa for blacks other than as laborers for the white people. They don't need mathematics. They don't need the sciences. That was Bantu education.
The most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. The basic tenet of black consciousness is that the black man must reject all value systems that seek to make him a foreigner in the country of his birth and reduce his basic human dignity.
The worst of the apartheid laws were race classification under the Group Areas Act, where there was massive removal, uprooting of settled populations.
Long walk, long way, long walk.
I have fought against white domination, and I have fought against black domination.
Let us walk long way.
You are either alive and proud or you are dead. And when you are dead, you can't care anyway.
It's true. It's true. It's true.
In Sharpeville, this huge demonstration, they didn't burn their passes. What they did is they marched to the police station, unarmed naturally. And because there was a huge crowd, they pushed themselves against the fence of the police station, and the police opened fire and killed 69 people.
Let us march forth, drawing strength from our common plight and our brotherhood. In time, we shall be in a position to bestow upon Africa the greatest gift possible, a more humane face.
After the massacre of Sharpeville, the repression, the banning, the outlawing of everything, the choice became submit or fight back.
The African National Congress commands and urges all of us to act for unity and as one.
There are many people who feel that it is useless and futile for us to continue talking peace and non-violence.
Umkhonto we Sizwe, the spear of the nation, of which he became the commander-in-chief. Every step should be taken to avoid the loss of life.
In their hundreds, they left the country and joined Umkhonto we Sizwe. So there was a huge influx of these people in our camps in different parts of Africa. Bombings of apartheid buildings, post offices and other structures where they said Europeans only or so forth.
Nelson Mandela, leader and founder of the sabotage movement Spirit of the Nation, was accused with the others of plotting sabotage to overthrow the South African government by force.
That trial really elevated him to the legend that he has become.
I have cherished the ideal of democratic society with equal opportunity for all. That is an ideal, he said, for which I am prepared to die.
When I made that speech and I said I'm prepared to die, the women behind me exclaimed, because I don't know whether they thought that was too much to challenge the judge.
It was said that the road to freedom passes through a jail.
Robben Island, my home, for a while kept me, for a moment preserved me. I face my life and future behind your prison doors, within the confines of your thick walls, built by men, my family and mentors, their blood and sweat, soul-banished bodies, shoulders and blistering hands, open cracked backs. I saw it in our suffering. I see it in our victory. It may mean different things to different people, but to real people, it is freedom. Indeed, we are free. Time is on our side to heal.
Many of them, the thousands that went there, when you ask them, where were you educated? They will tell you Robben Island with some pride.
The government had decided that tuition in all schools must be given in Afrikaans. And the students decided to take to the streets in protest. And then the police tried to crush it and fired. 600 kids were killed.
Only free men can negotiate. Prisoners cannot enter into contracts. My father says, I cannot and will not give any undertaking at a time when I and you, the people, are not free. Amanda!
This was a tremendous boost to the campaign to make the country ungovernable.
they decided to ban the liberation movements. So from that time onwards, we could hardly say a thing here.
What is our future?
More harsh laws are being passed, making political work completely impossible.
As soon as the other side was willing to negotiate, to listen, to talk, to share, to accept the dignity of the people, to allow the exiles to come back, to release the political prisoners, to unban the organizations, then the armed struggle ended. It was never an objective in itself.
I am serious about bringing this matter to finality without delay.
South Africa belongs to all.
I wish to put it plainly that the government has taken a firm decision to release Mr. Mandela unconditionally.
Black consciousness is an attitude of the mind and a way of life. Its essence is the realization by the black man of the need to rally together with his brothers around the cause of their oppression, the blackness of their skin, and to operate as a group to rid themselves of the shackles that bind them to perpetual servitude.
Your struggle, your commitment, and your discipline has released me to stand before you today.
I hope you enjoyed this clip. We're taking a short break now. Stay tuned. As we celebrate Freedom Day, we're now going to pay tribute to some of the people who played a role in the fight against apartheid. There were thousands of selfless men and women, black, white, Indian and colored, Muslim, Christian, Hindu and Jew, who sacrificed so much for the liberation of our country. So the next few clips do not diminish the achievement of others. We hold in high esteem all of those who fought in the struggle against oppression.
Education, youth, selfless giving are just a few aspects of the remarkable life of Imam Abdullah Haroon. On September 27, 1969, Imam Abdullah Haroon died in detention in Cape Town. He had been incarcerated for 123 days at the then notorious Calden Square police station in the city centre. Autopsy evidence proved strongly that the Imam had been tortured and had died of these injuries. 48 years ago, the Imam was killed in detention in Cape Town, leaving behind a community that would be changed forever. Imam Haroon made higher learning in Islam equal to all, not only to empower ordinary Muslims who had no ambitions necessarily of becoming an Imam or Sheikh, but also extending this to women. At this point in time, this was new. A spin-off from this equal view of education was the establishment of the Muslim News newspaper. The Imam, along with several other individuals at the Cape, established the newspaper in 1960, and he would be the editor until his death. A second important aspect of Imam Haroon's legacy was an investment in young people. The Imam was instrumental in organizing young people to form the Claremont Muslim Youth Association. Many non-Muslim political thinkers and activists at the time were invited to address them. Imam Haroon was involved in alleviating the plight of the poor beyond his own community. He assisted black African communities in Langa and Guguletu at a time when Muslim engagement and involvement with these communities was unheard of. He developed close ties, particularly with the banned Pan-Africanist Congress, and assisted the families of those who were imprisoned or killed. But moreover, Imam Haroon joined the ranks of those who spoke out boldly against apartheid injustice at the time. Imam Haroon exemplified what it meant to do good, not only for your own community, but also beyond.
Ahmed Timol was born in Breyten in the Transvaal on the 3rd of November 1941 to Haji Yusuf Ahmed Timol and Hawa Ismail Dinda. His father came to South Africa in 1918 at the age of 12 from India. He was one of 6 children with 2 sisters, Zubayda and Aisha, and 3 brothers, Ismail, Mohammed and Haroon. As there were no primary schools in the area, the young Timol was schooled at home. On the 9th of September 1964, Suleiman Babla Saluji, a TIC member, was killed in police detention. After Babla's death, Timol continued to distribute leaflets issued by the TIC Youth Congress and narrowly escaped being caught by the police while doing so. Timol completed his teacher's diploma in 1963 and was posted to the Ruraput Indian High School. As a teacher, he was well loved and respected by colleagues and students. Considered a gifted teacher, he would inspire and motivate his students and was one of the most popular teachers at the school. Even when he was abroad, Timol shared his meager salary with his family as he sent money home to assist. On the 25th of December 1966, Ahmad Timol informed his parents that he was going on a religious pilgrimage, the Hajj to Mecca, and then to London before returning home. He resigned from teaching and left for Hajj. In Saudi Arabia, Timol met Dr. Dadu and Maulvi Kachalia, a stalwart of the liberation struggle who was in exile in India. Maulvi Kachalia had helped set up the ANC office in Delhi. In October 1971, Ahmad Timol and a student of his, Salim Esop, were arrested at a roadblock in Coronationville, handcuffed and taken to the Newlands police station. The police discovered pamphlets in the boot of the car that they were traveling in. According to the police, panned ANC literature, copies of secret communication correspondence, instructions from the SACP, material related to the 50th anniversary of the SACP were found in the car. The police visited the Timol home and detained his father and brother Harun. A very large amount of people were detained in the wake of Ahmad Timol's arrest. Amina Desai, a close family friend of the Timol family, was also arrested. Timol used a home at number 12 Harold Street, Ruraput, as an underground base. This was a second home to Timol, and in return for running errands, Desai would allow Timol use of a car. In the police version of Timol's detention, they claimed that he admitted having contact with the SACP in London. The police further claimed that on the 27th of October 1971, while Timol was alone with a policeman, Sergeant J. Rodriguez at the John Foster Square police station, he rushed to a window, opened it and dived out, landing on Commissioner Street. There was no mention at all of assault or torture meted out to Ahmad Timol. Several thousand people attended his funeral. Ruraput came to a standstill. All Indian businesses closed as a mark of respect. There was a heavy police presence at the funeral. They even took photographs as Timol's body was being lowered into the grave. Today, almost 46 years since his death, the inquest will be reopened. Ahmad Timol paid the ultimate price for freedom, and we salute this giant of a man for his dedication and unwavering belief in a free, non-racial South Africa.
The senior magistrate disregarded the evidence of the Blackman report, supported by independent fellow doctors, and he said that there was no one to blame. He had taken his own life because he had betrayed these comrades of his.
Fatima Mir was born in Grey Street, Durban on the 12th of August 1928, the daughter of Musa Mir and Rachel Farrell, and the second born of their 9 children. Her mother Rachel was an orphan of Jewish and Portuguese descent, but she converted to Islam and took the name Amina. Fatima Mir's father Musa was born in Surat, India. Fatima also came from a large extended family. It was a household that reflected a strong Gujarati Indian and Muslim cultural ethos against the background of a first-generation immigrant family struggling to survive in a racist society. Many of the men in Fatima's extended family played leading roles in the Natal and South African Indian Congress. The role that Fatima and her husband played in cementing the relationship between the Indian and African National Congress and with the people such as Nelson Mandela, Walter Sisulu, Oliver Tambo, and Chief Albert Luthuli is one of the heartwarming stories of the liberation movement. Although she was offered a seat in Parliament in 1994, Fatima Mir declined the offer because of her preference for non-governmental work. However, she served the ANC government in a number of capacities. She was the advisor to the Minister of Arts, Culture, Science and Technology. She served on the National Symbols Commission and the National Anthem Commission. Furthermore, she was a member of the advisory panel to the President. She was on the Film and Publication Board and on the board of the South African Broadcasting Corporation. As a member of the staff of the University of Natal from 1956 to 1988, Fatima Mir acquired an international reputation. Fatima Mir herself died on 13th March 2010 at the age of 81.
Musa Mozi Muhammad Mullah was born in 1934 in a small Transvaal country town, Christiana. He completed his primary schooling in Bloemhof and then went to Johannesburg to continue with his secondary schooling. He got involved in 1949 at the age of 15 in political activities by joining the Transvaal Indian Youth Congress. The TIYC was part of the Transvaal Indian Congress, which was allied to the African National Congress. In the 1950s, he served as Joint Honorary Secretary of the Transvaal Indian Youth Congress. He was expelled from high school in 1952 for taking part in the defiance campaign launched jointly by the South African Indian Congress. Mozi Mullah was one of the 156 accused in the South African treason trial of 1956 to 1961. Among his co-accused were giants of the freedom movement as Nelson Mandela, Walter Sisulu, O.R. Tambo and Ahmed Kathrada. In May 1963, he was detained under the notorious 90-day no-trial law and held in solitary confinement. In August, together with Arthur Goldreich, Harold Wolp and Abdul Hay Jassat, he escaped from Marshall Square Police Station in the heart of Johannesburg and made his way to Tanganyika, now Tanzania, where he joined the external mission of the ANC. After 28 years of exile, he returned to South Africa in December 1990 and served on the ANC's Department of International Affairs for a number of years before being appointed by President Mandela as South Africa's first ambassador to the Islamic Republic of Iran for 4 years. On his return, he was posted to Islamabad, Pakistan as the High Commissioner. Mullah was part of the NIC-TIC delegation at the CODESA talks. His wife, Zubaydah, who spent most of her life in exile with him, passed away. His son, Afzal, was born in New Delhi. Mozi had to leave his daughter, Tasneem, and son, Afzal, who was born after his escape from detention in 1963. He is currently in semi-retirement. The team at Vantage Point salutes this giant of a man, a true son of Africa, for his untold sacrifices and suffering in his quest for the freedom of South Africa. We wish him all well.
Then there was one slogan we had put up in the Johannesburg Library. That slogan was simple: we black folks want to read. And the following day, they came up. It took them about 24 hours to erase it, sandstoning it. And the very same night, we went back and said, we black folks ain't reading yet.
Abdullah Muhammad Umar was born in Observatory, Cape Town on the 26th of May 1934 and grew up in District 6. He attended the Kipling Stream Muslim Primary School in Salt River and matriculated at Trafalgar High School in District 6, where his political awareness was formed under the influence of his English teacher, Ben Keys. After matriculation, he enrolled at the University of Cape Town for a BA LLB degree. Umar was one of the few attorneys who were prepared to take on the political trials which were becoming increasingly prominent in the 1960s. For instance, in the early 1960s, he defended accused members of POCO, the armed wing of the PAC, and eventually became the PAC's official attorney. During this period, he also forged close links with members of the Congress movement, making repeated trips to Robben Island to meet and act for the leadership who were being incarcerated there. In the 1970s, Umar was once again thrust into political limelight when he acted for the Black People's Convention and the South African Students' Organization. His willingness to serve people of various political formations was testament to his commitment to upholding human rights without discrimination, even in the face of apartheid. After the first democratic elections in 1994, Umar became the first Minister of Justice of the Democratic South Africa. As Justice Minister, he embarked upon a program of institutional reform and piloted legislation to set up statutory bodies such as the Constitutional Court, the Human Rights Commission, and the Office of the Public Protector. After serving his full 5-year term, which ended in June 1999, as the Minister of Justice in the cabinet of President Nelson Mandela, he was appointed to the position of Minister of Transport by President Thabo Mbeki. As Transport Minister, he focused on completing institutional transformation, safety issues in respect of rail, sea and air transportation, and the transformation of the minibus taxi industry, law enforcement, and infrastructure development. Dullah Umar died on the 13th of March 2004. He is survived by his wife Farida, his 3 children Kamal, Rustam and Fazleen, and his 2 grandchildren Ramiz and Wasim.
The idea is that we want to put the past behind us, but we don't want to forget. We want to remember. And we want to deal with that past in a way which will enable South Africans to end the violence which has existed, the culture of violence which continues to exist, and for us to be able to establish accountability in our country and the rule of law. And so the context, I believe, is important for understanding the South African situation. And as I say, we tried to create a mechanism, the structures and procedures, which would mean that we locate the amnesty process within a morally acceptable framework to all South Africans.
That's where we end today's show. I hope you enjoyed it. Remember to interact with us via social media or send us an email at vantagepoint@itvnetworks.tv. We'll play out with a special Freedom Day montage. Until we meet again, fi amanillah, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Inkosi sikeleli Afrika, maluphakamisu pondolwayo, yizwa imithandazo yethu, Nkosi sikelela thina lusapho lwayo, murena buluka sitshaba sa Yesu, ufedise dintwale matshwenyeho. Murena buluka sitshaba sa Yesu, ufedise dintwale matshwenye. Usibuluke, usibuluke, usibuluke Murena, sibuluke sitshaba sa Yesu, sitshaba sa Afrika.